Welcome to Law Officer Live. My name is Travis Yates. I'm the editor-in-chief of lawofficer.com, and it is June 28th, 2017, and we got an exciting show for you today. None other than Tim Kennedy himself, hard to kill. Tim Kennedy himself will be with us a little later today. But before that, we want to tell you about an exciting conference coming up in September. It's the ALERT Conference. The Association of Law Enforcement Emergency Response Trainers are going to be in Kansas City. That has a brand new driving track, brand new facilities, progressive department, exciting classes. We're going to be up there at Law Officer. We want to invite you to that conference, so be sure to check out what they're doing there at ALERT. Obviously, driving-related issues is the leading cause of death in law enforcement. This is an important conference, an important organization, and we're very, very proud to be partnering with them. So we'll see you in Kansas City in September. And of course, we wouldn't be here with you today if it wasn't for our show sponsor. Today's show sponsor has sponsored other shows. It's Blue Armor Supplements. It's the only supplement company made for law enforcement, by law enforcement. And what we love about these supplements, other than the fact that they work phenomenally, is that they are made for law enforcement. So they have 5 different supplements that cater to the law enforcement officer's job. The one that I've talked about the last couple of weeks is Focus. And I just called the rep, and he said that they still have Focus in stock, which I can't believe, because I've talked about this particular one. It's my favorite one. But as a law enforcement officer, you have to get this particular supplement. Now, they're all great. I love the energy as well. But Focus has really fine-tuned me in the last few weeks since I've been back on it. So let me encourage you to check out that company, Blue Armor. And I had a audience member contact me this week, and they said, yeah, I see your show sponsors Blue Armor, but I'm not a law enforcement officer, so I know I can't buy it. No, of course you can buy it. And the products are made for law enforcement, but they will help you in any job that you have to keep you alert, to keep you with energy. They even have weight loss products. Check it out. We have videos up there. It's a great company. We're very honored to partner with them. And I just can't say anything more about it. And of course, all of our team here at Law Officer takes those supplements. And I hope you like the products that we're giving you. So check it out. I think it's going to be a huge benefit to you. Our article for this week, the police chief has said publicly that he will release video when citizens lie about their officers. And I love this idea. We wrote an article about that. We want you to check that out. We have that up on the screen for you. But this premise is nothing new. We have been saying for years here at Law Officer that we do not use video correctly in law enforcement. Here's how we typically use video. We record things through body camera or dash camera, and then we wait for the media to ask for the video, right? Now, do you think the media is asking for the mundane videos or the videos that make us look positive? No, they're looking for controversial videos. And so typically it's a use of force, or maybe an officer was rude, or whatever it may be, or maybe it's even taken out of context. They ask for the video under a Freedom of Information request. We give the video, and then the media gives their take on the video. And then we look like we're having to play defense to even talk about what we did. And what we've been saying here for years here at Law Officer, not everybody agrees with it, is why don't we proactively release videos? Why do we wait for the media? Why don't we take a few videos a day, or if not all our videos, and just release them? We have this little thing called YouTube and Vimeo that's pretty much free for our law enforcement officers to use. And let's show the public a wide range of activities law enforcement does. If an alien walked down to this planet right now, well, they wouldn't walk. This is what they would see. They would think all American law enforcement does is use force. In fact, I've been overseas and I talked to officers overseas, and that's literally what they think. Oh, you officers in America are brutal or use force. That's because the only video they see is use of force videos. And of course, you know that is way less than 1% of all the activities we do. But that is what's shown all the time on videos. So let's use our videos differently. And we took what this chief decided to do, which was a citizen, was a complete jerk to this officer. I mean, this officer was professional, polite, and this citizen was just berating him. And then he went on social media and lied about him. And the chief says, you know what? You want to lie about my officer? Here's the entire video on what you did. I love it, but let's do more. And that's what the article of the week's about. I want to encourage you to do that. Of course, when we wrote the article, I got some hate mail from that. I'm used to that. Oh, this is ridiculous, Travis. And I go to domestic calls and we can't put those videos on. Of course you can't put the videos online. We're not saying going inside people's private homes and domestic calls and victims of crimes and put their stories on the internet. I'm talking about interaction with the public in a public forum that police do on a regular basis. Let's put those videos out there. I think that would give the public a much better sense of what law enforcement does, and I think we could use a little better job at doing that. So read the article, check it out, and give us your feedback on that. Now, as I said earlier, Tim Kennedy, we have a great interview with him, one of the best interviews we've ever done. If you don't know who Tim Kennedy is, obviously MMA star. He fought for the title twice in the middleweight classic. He's currently deployed with the United States Army. He's a sniper. He's a co-owner of Ranger Up t-shirts. He's coined the phrase #HardToKill. You just put that into any social media and you'll see all of his posts. Incredible person. Incredible guy, and very, very cool to have him here at Law Officer Live. And before we show you that interview, I want you to see a little bit about what Tim's doing with the Sheepdog Response Training. So here that is.
That means he's gonna go and drive down the street and throw more acid on little girls. Yeah, I've been there. I murdered that motherfucker. Because we don't let that happen, not in our world. All of those little decisions lead up to that moment where you're gonna live or die.
Sheepdog Response is an opportunity for us to change the current culture of Americans.
Like, okay, I'm drilling. No, we're drilling to stay alive. We're drilling for that time that we have to fight for our life.
There we go, nice takedown.
You gotta find it, you gotta find it. And if you don't drill that way, you're gonna die.
Sheepdog Response is the work to liberty.
You feel that, right? This is not jiu-jitsu. I just tore your eyes out. Old man jiu-jitsu is for fucking old men to die.
It's putting the teeth back into the we are the people. And you're gonna see for the first time how you've lived your whole entire lives. You're gonna have like, not this existential realization that you're like, oh my God, nirvana. No, what you're gonna do for the first time maybe is as you're normally pushing the shopping cart, looking at your shopping list or texting or grabbing your kids or throwing it on the cart, you're gonna go like this. You're gonna look up. Man, the moment I step off in country in a non-permissive or semi-permissive, fuck, even a permissive environment, I'm profiling all of the time. That is the thing that saves my life. We're not building an army, we're not creating vigilantes. We're changing a culture that really values freedom and appreciates hard work and loves what's on the far side of it.
If you guys have a problem, work through it. Work through it smoothly. Be cool. Cool is going slow and smooth. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull.
That's the goal. We want to get trained. We want to get mature, responsible gun owners to understand that going to the store and buying a gun doesn't mean that you're ready for anything.
Stay in that fight. Take that slack out after every single shot, please. Watch that trigger.
If you want to, go through life, walk through life as a warrior, so that you're not afraid, well, the only way to do that is to be trained. So make that decision. Decide that you want to be hard to kill. Decide that you're going to be that person. Male, female, big, small, it doesn't matter. If you're 5'2" and you weigh 100 pounds, you want to be the most lethal 5'2", 100-pounder that you can be.
There is no door to Sheepdog. If you want to come to Sheepdog, anybody can come. I don't care if you're black, if you're white, if you're Hispanic. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care how you wear your hair. I don't care what you wear on your head. I care that you get this information and that you use it, and that you take this idea and you pass it on. That you take what it means to feel free and get passionate about it.
there you get a sense of what the Sheepdog Response Training curriculum does. We set in for a day in some of their training. What you see is kind of what you get in that video. And Tim Kennedy, of course, he plays a character sometimes on video, but when we sat down with him a little bit earlier, he was not in character. He was himself, and I think you're going to see a side of Tim Kennedy that not many people get to see, and we were very privileged and honored that he sat down with us. So without further ado, here is that video with Tim Kennedy. I'm Travis Yates, the editor-in-chief of Lobster.com, and we are here today with Mr. Tim Kennedy. Tim, thank you for being here, sir.
My pleasure.
Though you don't know Tim Kennedy, you need to know Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy is an active duty Green Beret Special Forces sniper. He's also a retired professional MMA fighter. He's one of the few in the Army to be awarded a black belt in modern combat. He's the host of Hunting Hitler on the History Channel. I get lost, Tim. You're a busy guy. And he's here this week in our city with Sheepdog Response, which is training civilians and law enforcement how to be the sheepdogs they need to be. How's your time been in Tulsa so far, sir?
Man, I'm doing what I love. You know, we're shooting and we're fighting.
Yeah.
Watching guys get better, getting faster, stronger, and harder to kill. So
nice. Well, you were, of course, a high-ranking competitor in the UFC, middleweight class, I believe. Your Army. And first, I want to thank you for your service. Very commendable, sir, what you still do for our country. In fact, you just came off a deployment.
I did, yeah. I should have been a golfer. It would be way easier, I think.
You know, I often tell people, and you're part of the solution, sir, I often tell people that on December 12th, 2001, nobody would have said, you know what, we're going to go 15 years without a massive terrorist attack. We've had some small lone wolf type attacks, but we have literally gone almost 2 decades without that horrific event happening. And I am convinced, and I want to know your stance on this, I'm convinced the fact that that has not happened is because of men just like you, men and women just like you, that have taken the fight to them and have kept them running. And for that, I thank you. And I kind of want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, man, fighting on your home soil is your nightmare.
Right.
You know, that's not what you want. And in the past 12, 16 months, you know, from New Jersey, Boston, San Bernardino, Orlando, Detroit, like, we've been fighting here.
Right.
And that's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, for the first 15, 16 years after 9/11, we went to their door. And we went to their door, and we weren't knocking softly. Mm-hmm. You know, we're kicking it in and blowing it up. And that resolve, you know, if you go back to Pearl Harbor, every single American said, we're going to go to those islands, and we're going to let them know that you don't come to America and start killing civilians and I think there's not going to be consequences. And you know, we almost missed a generation where I think people forgot what that looks like.
Yeah.
You know, there is such a thing as holy anger, you know, wrath. Yeah. And you flew buildings filled with civilians into you know, the Pentagon and the Trade Center, and don't think that we're not going to come to your door. And maybe we lost our way for a few years.
Yep.
But now we got Madison McMaster, and things are real again.
Yeah, what McManus said, I don't have problems sleeping at night. No. They do.
Yeah, I give other people problems.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I agree with you. I think there were a few years where we sort of had a memory loss of what occurred on that horrific day. And I think we're kind of catching our way back, and that's many thanks to you and the messages you're spreading. And one of my favorite sayings from you, sir, is "Get fit or die." It's one of my favorite shirts from Ranger Up, I think a company that you co-own. Yep. Kind of tell us the background of why that is so important for our audience to hear.
So get fit or die. You know, what does getting hard to kill look like? Mm-hmm. You know, we say be hard to kill. You know, I'm a police officer. I shoot. You know, I'm a military guy. You know, whatever your occupation profession is. Even if you're just taking care of your family, what does hard to kill look like? Mm-hmm. So get fit or die. Like, I train, and my whole entire regiment in my life is so that I am the hardest person somebody ever tries to kill. And it does not matter what it is that you're coming at me with. Yeah. If you're in a car, you're gonna have a tough go at it. You know, if you got a knife, you better be in for a fight and plan on getting cut. If you think you're gonna pull a gun on me, like, you're gonna be full of holes. And if you're gonna put everything aside and pick up a chair and we're just gonna go, you know, old school style, and just boot scoot, I'll beat you to death. You know, and then tear your arms off. That's what get fit or die is. It's a dedication to being the hardest person somebody ever tries to kill, and it means you got to be in shape. It means you have to be mentally and physically strong. It means that you have to be conditioned to do the things that, the only way that you get good at this stuff is through hard work. There's no magical way to get good at shooting. You do repetitions, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. You dry fire for hours and hours and hours. You go into the gym and you box, you kickbox, you wrestle, you jiu-jitsu, you do escalation force, de-escalation force, you do cuffing, you do defensive tactics, you do wall work. Like, you do it all, and that is all work.
Yep.
The guys yesterday, you're like, oh, I got Tim Kennedy's here. He's a black belt, and who knows how many different things. He's been ranked top 10 in the world for 10 years, fought for the title twice. Man, he's going to show me some cool stuff. And I was like, hey guys, we're about to sweat and get bloody.
Yep.
Because there's no way to get better.
Yep. That's good stuff. and that means more. I mean, obviously you're teaching first responders, but you also teach civilians. That is for the entire population, because anyone may have to rise up, just like they did in London just this last week. Anyone may be called to be that sheepdog. So that message is not just for police or military or fire. That's for everybody, is it not?
Absolutely. So a Green Beret, Army Special Forces, we're a force multiplier. We're good at killing. We're good at fighting. We can shoot. We are the jack of all trades. Maybe not masters of anything, but definitely good at a lot of things. But what we're the best at is being a force multiplier. I think the American people have kind of, not that we got emasculated, or we forgot who we were.
Right.
We forget who we are. That we built the Golden Gate Bridge, that we built the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, that we built the trade centers, that we had fascism rising in 39, and in 41 we said, not a chance.
Right.
I'm not going to be speaking German, and we're not going to be walking around killing African Americans and Jews because we don't like the way they look.
Right.
So let's introduce you to what America looks like, and that is strength, and that is courage, and that is power, and that is fearlessness. And so I'm force multiplying. The Constitution, that first bit, where it says, we the people. The only way everything after that matters is because the people are a bunch of badasses.
That's right.
So we're putting the teeth back in the American people. And law enforcement, they need the tools, they need the training. They're underfunded and they're undertrained. And we're trying to fill that gap.
Right.
We have ways to get police officers into the training so they can be hard to kill. Then I also want every single American, if I had my way, the 360 million Americans would be at this range with me, shooting with me, learning about weapon safety, handling, how to be a responsible, productive member of society.
Right.
And, welcome to being American again.
Well, you're talking about Sheepdog Response Training, and that's for any citizen can take that, and then law enforcement can take that. How can our audience find out more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you just Google Sheepdog Response. You'd probably just go to any of my pages. Sheepdogresponse.com or Sheepdog on Facebook. For civilians, we have a lot of different courses. Military and law enforcement, they get something a little bit different.
Right.
Paramedics, fire, EMS, they get something a little bit different. And civilians, you're kind of getting an introductory. We're setting you on a course. There's no way that anybody can show you how to get good at this stuff in 40 hours, in 80 hours, in 120 hours. It takes dedication and hours, countless hours and months of hard work and years. And all we're doing is setting people on a trajectory.
Yeah.
This is your course, and this is how you get better.
What I love about it is you also have a Sheepdog Survival Fund where you actually try to help finance some folks that maybe can't afford it.
Yep.
So you're doing that. You're taking donations for that. And it's really phenomenal stuff. We watched some of the training this week, and it's good stuff. And you have kind of a different tiers that you teach, but one of the ones, my favorite ones that I think we oftentimes forget is that term awareness. I see it on the back of your shirt. Tell our audience how important awareness is.
So I think we have two types of awareness. You have external and internal. Mm-hmm. Awareness is first yourself. And this goes back to Sun Tzu and the Art of War. It's know yourself.
Right.
Know what am I bringing to the fight? What are my assets and my liabilities? How did I sleep last night? Mm-hmm. Did I drink last night? Did I get in a fight with my wife? Or my boyfriend, whatever. What is my overall condition to be somebody that can make a decision quickly that somebody's life is going to depend on?
Yeah.
So what is my awareness of myself? Am I hydrated? Do I have a bum knee? Do I hate my partner? Did I get a fight with my shift officer? All of those things are going to influence how I'm going to make decisions. So that's first being aware of myself. Mm-hmm. For me, I've been traveling I've traveled 19 hours on a flight to come here after being gone for 7 weeks to get 4 hours of sleep to walk onto the range to start shooting. That's probably not the best version of myself. But if you're going to be in a fight for life in your life,
right,
probably plan on not being the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So we have to prepare for that lowest common denominator. Second is the external situational awareness. It's biometrics and atmospherics. That's if I'm in a bad area of town and why am I there? Where am I parked? What cars are around me? What are the people wearing? If I'm in a nice area of town and there's somebody that doesn't belong, you can tell if you're aware, if you're situationally aware. You know, profiling, it's a real thing. There's stereotypes exist for a reason. It's because they fit and they work. And I know it's a trigger word for some people. I don't care.
Right.
Profiling saves lives.
Yep.
And I'm in the business of saving lives.
Well, what you speak is the truth, Tim. And so many people today get offended simply by the truth.
Yeah.
And you have had choice words to say to terrorists. And I think that's why through your social media platforms, you're such a popular guy, because I think all of us in America go, that's what I want to say. My question to you is, why are you seem to be the only one saying it?
I do not understand what has happened where we start placating. Leaders start caring what people think.
Right.
That's not how this works.
Yeah.
When you're a leader, you just do the right thing and nothing else matters. You know, it's like, I don't care what the right thing is to say. I care what the right thing is to do.
Right.
You know, I don't care what somebody's thoughts about how the world's supposed to work or what I'm supposed to say or what words I'm allowed to use. That's what's gotten people killed.
Yeah.
Like, political correctness has gotten
Causes
people killed.
hesitation?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And occupationally, you know, where you're walking up and you're like, man, am I supposed to be pulling this car over because I've made some assumptions about who's in this vehicle?
Right.
The fact that that's going through your head, we have already made some massive mistakes in leadership.
Right.
That we're impeding an officer's ability to do his job, his or her job. You know, if you look at San Bernardino, where people were, you know, before the shooting happened, people were concerned about the terrorists, but they didn't want to say anything because like, they don't want to be called like they're Islamophobic.
Right. Yeah, they saw them in the garage doing stuff, people showing
loading
up.
a bunch of ammo
Yeah.
in California
Yeah.
with an assault rifle, like, and this person was already radicalized. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
picking up a phone and calling like, hey man, I have this guy that looks to be completely radicalized, and he's
Right.
loading a bunch of magazines in his car, and he's wearing white prayer robes.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, we're 11 days into Ramadan right now today, and I how many Americans even know that that's going on?
Right.
You know, like, you got to be aware
Well,
of
and
these
the odd
things.
thing is so many of these cowards that are doing these terrorist attacks, there are people, including law enforcement, that were watching them.
Yeah.
I mean, that just happened over in London.
Yeah.
Like, this guy was on TV doing crazy things, and the police were watching him. That political correctness has embedded into our law enforcement even, and that is from, like you said, a lack of leadership. That's why we here at Law Officer call it courageous leadership. It takes courage to just simply do the right thing.
Yeah. There's no other option but the right thing.
Yep.
Nothing else matters. And if you're a man of character, if you're a woman of character, if you're a leader, those are consequences that I want to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
The consequences of doing the right thing.
That's
those
right.
are way different than having to deal with the repercussions and the guilt for the rest of my life of placating and pandering to the masses,
Yeah.
to the mob, as if we're in Rome. You know, like that's what destroyed Rome. I don't give a damn about the mob. I don't care what the people think. I care what the right thing is.
Yeah.
And that's saving lives. And right now, that's saving Americans' lives.
Well, I think we've got a lot of phrases for the Ranger Up Shirt Company because it's all good stuff, and obviously it's a lot of our audience is familiar with Ranger Up. You're involved in that company. What was the inspiration behind that?
I mean, so Nick Palmisano, the CEO and founder, we got military have a weird sense of humor, and sometimes it's hard to deal with what our job entails without laughter and without humor. So the things that we say and the things that we do, we just started putting on T-shirts.
Yeah.
And those are just things that was just to deal with the fact that you're out in the rain or the snow and you're eating a brown bag of disgusting thing that was probably made in China, and you're putting some water in a thing to heat it up that isn't working, and your life sucks.
Yep.
You know, like the only way you're going to deal with that is to laugh about it.
Yep.
And so we put it on T-shirts.
It's good stuff,
Yeah.
man. I've got a couple signs in my office. It inspires me every day. I know a lot of our audience is aware of it, and I want to make sure our audience knows this, Tim. They're not looking at a superhero here. They're looking at a guy that gets up every day and works his ass off.
Yeah.
And that's what's made you what you are today. And anyone can do that, can they not?
There's nothing special about me or any of the instructors, yourself, or anybody else that is at the tip of the spear.
That's right.
They get up and they work hard. They put on their shoes the same way, they put on their pants the same way, one leg at a time, 1 foot at a time. And if you're going to see a difference, it's not that there's a special difference. The only difference is that I have worked to get good. I have done thousands and thousands of hours of dry fire drills. I've done thousands of hours on the bag just doing shadow boxing. You know, like not the fun stuff, not sparring, not hitting the bag, just working on how to move my freaking feet.
Right.
So you're 100% right. Correct. Anybody can do this. You just have to make a choice and have a change and then follow through with it.
Tim Kennedy, make a choice, work hard, fight hard, tell the truth, be courageous in leadership. Tim Kennedy, that's America. That's what we want to get back to, sir. I can't thank you enough for what you do. Thank you for being here at Law Officer. There you have it. That was probably one of the coolest interviews I've ever had. And let me tell you, those of you that see Tim Kennedy online, you see what he does on social media. Of course, you've seen what he's done in the MMA ring and you see what he's done in training. But let me tell you really what I got from that interview and talking with him off camera as well, is that man is a very humble man. He's a very quiet man. And by the way, that makes him a very dangerous man. And he is indeed a dangerous man, if you couldn't tell by that interview and some of the things you've seen about him. But it's kind of cool that a man can be that well trained and can be, you know, that well focused on obviously staying alive and training others to stay alive, but be at the end of the day, just kind of a laid back, cool guy that, you know, he believes in his family, he believes in his country. And man, I tell you, it makes you a little better to hang out with that guy. And I had a great, great honor to spend an afternoon with Tim. Can't thank him and the Sheepdog Response team enough, and that was pretty cool. So we're going to leave you today with another one of our WinX videos. Of course, WinX was in Chicago this last April, and we have exclusively gotten the rights to play those videos for you, our law officer audience. We're certainly hopeful that you are sharing those as you see them. We actually had those videos independently each week released on lawofficer.com, so be sure to check that out and forward those and share those. It's a really neat event. If you're familiar with the TEDx series in the business world, that's kind of what WinX is, but it's for law enforcement. Man, we're really honored to work with Roy Becci and Brian Willis and all the folks behind the scenes there at WinX to make that happen. And this week's episode is Maryann Pope. Maryann Pope is a widow of a slain police officer, and she gives a very powerful talk on what it is like behind the scenes of a line of duty death. And we're going to leave you with that video. We thank you for being with us today on Law Officer Live. Check us out next week. You've got July 4th in between. Have a safe July 4th. God bless America, and we will see you next Wednesday night.
Everybody, thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Brian and Roy for hosting this fantastic WinX event. It's a tremendous honor to be up here speaking to you today. As Brian said, I'm going to talk to you about the on-duty death of my husband, whom his name was John Petropoulos, and he was a Calgary police officer up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm going to start today's presentation a little bit, just talking a little bit about who John and I were as individuals and who we were as a couple, because that played a tremendous role, obviously, in me determining how I was going to move forward after his death. So we met like any good Albertans did in the 90s. We got drunk in a bar at the age of 20, and the rest is history. And we had a great time. We were together for 12 years, so we were dating for 4 years, and we were living together for 4 years, and then we were married for 4 years. And the 4 years that John was a police officer was the same 4 years that we were married, just to give you a little bit of context. So it took John 8 years to become a police officer. That was totally his dream. He told me that basically when we first started dating. He knew he wanted to become a police officer. So he was a determined guy. He applied to every police service across Canada pretty much and got rejection after rejection after rejection. He was like a Bobo doll, like bam, 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 and he just kept bouncing up again. And what he did is he just kept bettering his application. He just got his criminology diploma, then he got his criminology degree, and he worked as a corrections officer. He delivered bread. He did what he had to do to pay the bills and keep bettering his application. His dream finally came true in 1996. He got the call from the Calgary Police Service, and we were living actually in British Columbia at the time. Now, John was this big, hairy Greek guy, very handsome guy, but he was 6'3", about 200 pounds. And when he got the call, he heard the message on the answering machine, and this was totally uncharacteristic because he was this totally calm, cool, collected real stoic, real police officer kind of personality. Really quite quiet and introverted and didn't say too much usually. Anyways, he got the call. He was so excited. He dropped to his back and he's lying on the floor with his arms and legs in the air. I did it. It was so cute. Anyways, he'd had that moment of achieving his dream. So we were living in British Columbia, so we moved back to Alberta. And away we went. We were married that same year, 1996, so we were married for the 4 years, and he was a police officer. Now, what I was doing during those 8 years was, I too had a dream. I wanted to become a writer, and I make sort of light of it, but the reality was I thought a lot about writing. I complained a lot about not having my time or money to write. I read books on writing. I took courses on writing. I did everything except for to get my butt in the chair and actually do the writing. And John was really supportive and encouraging. I mean, the poor guy had to listen to me whinge, write about this for 12 years. He did everything he could to encourage me and my potential as a writer, and I sort of just didn't take it very seriously. So in those 4 years back in Calgary as a married couple, I started to make rumblings about starting a family because we were, in our early 30s. And John said, well, okay, maybe we will start a family, but what about your writing? And I said, well, maybe I can do both. And still very much wanting to be a writer, but not willing to put the work in. And John's personality was changing. I think many people in this room will probably know a little bit. When a police officer is new on the job, they do have a bit of a personality change at times. He was getting tougher and bitter and jaded, and sure as heck wasn't too keen about bringing a child onto this planet. And that's sort of where we were at September 2000. So we went down to California because we had a wedding in Disneyland to go to, which ended up being amazing. We had a really, really good trip. We had fantastic sex in Vegas, and we went to the Grand Canyon, and we had a hoot at Disneyland. There was no other way I'd get John to Disneyland other than because he had to be there for a wedding. We went on all the rides. We had a ride. It was a really good trip. We didn't talk about work. We didn't talk about his work, my work. We didn't talk about me not writing, starting a family, anything like that. It was the old John and Maryann back. We had the trip of a lifetime. And it turned out to be extremely significant. So we came back home, and this is sort of late September 2000, and then the poop hit the fan, and my mom called and said, would you like to, or not would you, that's not my mother. My mom said, would you please have Thanksgiving dinner for 15 people? And I'm like, ooh, well, I think we're both working, Mom, but I'll see what John has to say. Well, John didn't have very much to say about that. He says, you just don't get it, do you? And I'm like, what? And so this is Monday night. We get home, and Tuesday night the call comes in from my mom. And I said, well, come on, it's Thanksgiving dinner. I said, we can make it happen. He says, we're both working. I said, actually, I'm off on Thanksgiving Day. And he says, Maryann, when are you going to start to say no to other people, and when are you going to start to say yes to things you really want to do, which is supposedly your writing? And I'm like, you're being a jerk. And he's like, okay. So you know what he did? I couldn't believe this. He gave me the silent treatment. Never happened before. We had 2 or 3 days in our house, this big, beautiful house that we may or may not have filled with children, had our dog, and we weren't due to go back to work until the end of the week. So John was going to start back to shift on Thursday night at 9 p.m., and I started back to work on Friday morning. So here we are rattling around in this big house. Our dog's looking at us like, what the heck's going on? And finally, Thursday afternoon rolls around, September 28th, and John says, let's go to the dog park. And I'm like, big of you talking to me again. So we go, and I've had time to think, right? So I'm at the dog park, and I take a deep breath, and I say, John, I am so scared I'm going to wake up 20 years from now and still not have finished writing a book. And you know what he says to me? He looks at me, and he says, probably right about that, as long as you know that'll be your choice. You're a dink. We're supposed to be making up. Pardon my language. We're supposed to be making up. And you know what he does? He throws back his head and he laughs. He says, you're right. I am being such a jerk. That was our last conversation. I took him to work that night, dropped him off at the Calgary Police Service District 6, which is in the south part of the city where we lived. He goes into the building, and just before he goes in the back door of the police station, he turns around and gives me this little wave. No big romantic, I love yous or anything like that. Just a little waves, goes into the door, and I drive home, and I think on the way home I thought, geez, he's acting funny. I think I'm going to figure out what he's trying to tell me here about this writing business. So I say to myself, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and set my alarm for 5 a.m. and do a little bit of writing before going into work. In those days, I worked for the Calgary Police Service as a civilian. I was records, and I took the incident reports from police officers over the phone, right? So I wore the little headsets, and I sat in the cubicle, and I took in the incident reports. So I was supposed to work at 7 a.m. that morning, so I set my alarm for 5 a.m. Anyone here can guess what I did when the alarm went off at 5 a.m.? Snooze. 10 minutes pass, wake up, starting to feel a little anxious, disappointed in myself, but of course then the usual crap begins in the head. Too tired to go, I don't want to write, I have to go work for 10 hours, tomorrow, right? You know, the usual habit stuff. So finally roll out of bed around 6 a.m., go to work, I do not turn on the radio. I get to work, and of course it's shift change, right? And it's rather quiet in there, but I don't really pick up on it. So I get in there, and my supervisor looks at me and says, Maryann, can I see you in my office, please? And I said, sure. So I go, and she shuts the door behind me when I go in, and I think, oh, I've screwed up on a report before going on holidays. And she says, John's fallen. And I'm like, oh, you know, broken arm, broken leg, one ear goes in, one ear out the other. Don't really think too seriously about it. And she looks at me a little funny, and she says, you need to call his inspector. And I said, oh, an inspector, I say. Boy, inspectors don't usually phone in police reports. I am really screwed up on a report. And it's not until I sit down, and I'm dialing, hey, John's inspector, and I'm in with my supervisor, and my brain makes that connection between John's inspector, John's fall, and that starts to arc in my brain going, oh my God, something's happening here. So the inspector answers the phone and says, Maryann, are you with your supervisor? I say, yes. Maryann, are you sitting down? I say, yes. And he says, John's fallen and hit his head. So the severity goes up a notch, right? So I'm like, okay, and I'm just sort of breathing. It feels sort of like the air in the room has been sucked out at this point. And he says, be with your supervisor. She will take you out to the back alley. Myself and John Sargent will come and pick you up. So it's exactly what we do. And we're standing in the back alley, and I've got my little lunch bag, my little purse. I'm only 32. I feel like I'm about 4 years old, right? Really young, really scared, really vulnerable. I stand there, I look at my supervisor, and of course she's Calgary Police civilian. She and everybody else in the Calgary Police knows this is huge. Officer down, word spreads like wildfire, you all know that. I don't quite know exactly how serious this is, but I can tell where we're headed. And so I look at her and I say, I am so glad we had such a good vacation. And she just throws her arms around me, because she knew where I was headed. So get in the car, Sergeant and John Sargent, Inspector, pick me up, take me to the hospital. First stop is this quiet room. But sorry, on the way to the hospital, I should just mention, by that point I knew that John had fallen through a roof. That's what they were calling it, a roof, and hit his head. That's about all we knew, at a warehouse. So I get there into the quiet room, and I'm sitting with John's partner that evening, a policewoman named Lil. And I'm sitting there, and she puts her arm around me, and then there's all John's other teammates around, quite a few of them, male police officers. And we're sitting there, and it's just this weird, quiet moment where I'm kind of waiting to hear the next bit of news, right? So I'm sitting there, and I look up. Lil's got her arm around me. I look, and there's all these male police officers, all these police officers looking at me, and I can tell they've been crying. And I'm like, oh, that's an anomaly. Cops don't cry on the job. I knew right then and there, wordlessly, quietly, gently, he's not going to make it home. And he didn't. And sure enough, the doctor comes in, tells me John's suffered a massive head injury. The brain is hemorrhaging, but they can only do so much because obviously it's encased in the skull. A few minutes later, the social worker comes, gets me, takes me to the emergency room. And I'm obviously collapsing inside by this point, but holding it together on the outside. What do? So the emergency room doors open, and I see John lying there, and he actually looks not too bad. I mean, he's lying on a stainless steel gurney, and he's got tubes coming out of him, and he's draped in a sheet. But, he just kind of looks like he's sleeping. There's just a little blood on one elbow, right? Because the injury's here. So he's lying there. So I'm thinking, maybe this is all going to turn around. So I run over, and I grab his hand, and I'm like, John. And of course, nothing, right? The guy's going to be legally declared brain dead within 3 hours. So I kiss him on the lips, and I'm like, John, I love you. And that's it. My silent treatment was reinstated. That's what I say, because that was it. So the social worker puts his arm around me, gently takes me out of that emergency room into the hallway that, of course, is filling up with police officers very quickly. So before I go back to the hospital in a moment, just to tell you what else happened, I want to take you guys gently out of that emergency room and explain to you how we got there, because from an OH&S perspective, a lot of things went wrong. And here's what happened. John had responded to a call, 5 a.m. with Lil Hall. They'd responded, the first employee of the day had called 911, and here's why. He had arrived at this warehouse, and he'd gone to go into the door, but the man door, but he'd seen where the vehicle door was, there was a glass window over top, and there was a hole in that window. So he sees that, thinks, that's weird. Then he opens the door, and the alarm goes off. Not loud, but it sounds funny. The alarm sounds funny, and that's what he maintained. He's positive he heard. So he puts two and two together, thinks that someone's in the building. Fair enough, he calls 911. Police arrive, John and Lil arrive. arrive, hear the details. They too agree, okay, this could be a B&E in progress. They call for backup. They call K9. They call John Sargent, the boss, and other team members come. Everyone comes, thinks it's a great call. B&E progress, there's someone in the building. So the K9 arrives, gets the dog, and looks around the group of police officers that have assembled, looks straight at John, and says, "You, let's go." Not a moment's hesitation. Why? Because Darren Leggett had trained John in recruit class, just like Brian Willis has. He knew that John knew how to clear buildings, plus John had just been 6 months on the B&E detail. So he chose John to go in the building. So K9, obviously, and the dog stay on the main level, and John goes up this ladder, this wooden ladder, up to the mezzanine level. So he goes up there, and he's standing on about a 5x5 landing, we'll say, and then there's another ladder there with more storage stuff up there. And so it was deemed a permanent workplace. People did go up there on a regular basis. So John goes up there. He's standing on this 5x5 ladder. He takes a step from a safe surface over some very low-lying conduit wires like this to what looked like a safe surface, but it was not. It was the top of a false ceiling. There was no safety railing in place to warn him or anyone else of the danger. He takes the step, whoomp, falls through 9 feet, falls into the lunchroom below. Unbelievably, someone the day before had left a chair in the middle of the lunchroom, so the back of John's legs hit the top of the chair, projecting his body backwards, the back of his head hitting the ground, the concrete, with enough force and angle to cause a massive brain injury right like that. 9-foot fall. That's how fast it happened. So a few other things from an OH&S perspective that did go wrong was there was actually a safety rail, like a hazard sign, a warning sign. It was a good 15 feet past the actual hazard in the dark. There was no sensor lighting. John wouldn't have been able to see it. And it was hanging from the roof, so it was quite high up there, so that did not a lot of good. The other thing is, too, there was that overhead hole in the bay window that the person had seen actually had been caused by someone, an employee the day before had driven in with the forklift, caused that, had not been communicated to the first employee of the day, so then they were thinking there was someone in the building. It was the wind going through the hole the wind going through the hole that had caused the false alarm to go off. Security had attended a couple of times. So a lot of things, unfortunately, did go wrong. The main thing that we focused on, I'll get to that in just a moment, was that there was no safety railing in place, when according to Alberta health and legislation, Alberta safety and legislation, there should have been. So when John fell through, I should mention Darren Leggett, the K9 officer, saw him fall through that, immediately found him, God knows how in the dark, but he found him in the lunchroom, immediately started CPR, which meant that John could be on life support for the day, so I could spend the day with him, holding his hand and saying goodbye to him, and also it meant that John could donate his heart, pancreatic islets, and his kidneys for organ donation. So that's how I spent September 29th, 2000. It was the toughest day of my life, but I took John to the finish line. So there we go. I go home at the end of that horrific day and wake up the next morning, 32-year-old widow, and I sort of put one foot in front of the other and do the best I can. 2 weeks later, my brother comes downstairs, finds me sitting at my computer, and I'm just typing away with my own little earphones on. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm writing John's story. I have heard what he told me about putting my writing a priority." And I did. It took me 8 years to get that book and me where it needed to be, but I did it. And I'm under the 20-year timeline, I'd like to say, in case John's listening. But I did it. Now, from a workplace safety perspective, right after John's death, the recruit classmates, Cliff O'Brien, Glenn Laird, Joel Matthews, three of good friends of John's from recruit class, they called crap on this just like I did. John's death was an easily preventable death at an unsafe workplace as the result of a fall. So what they didn't know where we were going to go with the memorial fund, but what they did is they had the courage and the insight to do little pins. I've got some on the back there with John's regimental number on them. Before John was even buried in the ground, on his funeral, they raised over $10,000, and they said, "Maryann, when you are in some sort of semblance of mental and emotional shape," which I wasn't for a while, "would you like to be involved with how the funds are used?" And I said, "Oh, you betcha." So eventually, I'd say about after 3 to 4 months, when I was sort of feeling up to it, we talked about how we're going to use that money. And what we decided to do was address the issue that led to John's death. So what we do is we raise public awareness about why and how to ensure people's workplaces are safe for everyone, including emergency responders. We also do traffic safety. So we did 5 public service announcements, TV ads that have aired about 2 million times on television. We have a powerful 10-minute safety video. We do presentations like this. There's a whole team of speakers responders that do these presentations at safety conferences. We go out into the public, into schools, conferences, and we teach people this was a preventable death. Here's what you can do to help make sure nothing like this happens to your own employees or to emergency responders who will not be aware of the hazards in your workplace. So, from today's theme, what's important now, I'm going to do a quick little play-by-play post-game analysis of the story I just told you on what's important now. Of course, I didn't have what's important now in Brian Willis's voice in my head back in 2000, but I certainly do now, and I look at the things we did apply. What's important now too. So number one, ICU. When I was faced with the most horrific thing that ever could have happened to me, my greatest fear, my worst fear, losing my husband, my soulmate, my best friend, I had no training for that, obviously, but I did what I had to do. I listened to my gut and my soul and my heart, and I spent the day with him. I told him whatever I needed to tell him, and I had that special day with him. Number two, I heard what John was trying to tell me about my writing, and I did. I became a writer. Boy, did I get that message loud and clear. I get my butt in the chair pretty much each and every day. I write books and screenplays and play scripts and blogs. Number three, we did not accept John's death. Well, of course, yes, emotionally, yes, we accepted John's death, but we didn't accept that there was nothing we could do about that. So we went with the Memorial Fund and said, look, if we can try and transform this death into some sort of this horrific loss we've all experienced into some sort of positive change for other people and help raise awareness about emergency responders out there and the things that people can do to help make sure they get home to their families safe at night, that is worth it, and that's what we did. Number four, Darren Leggett. What's important now, he was trained to do CPR. When he needed to do it most, he was ready, bang, he did it, and the ramifications were huge. Number five, the police officers that started John's Fund, absolutely incredible. I don't know how they knew what to do, and I'm still not quite sure why they stuck by my side so much. They went way above beyond the call of duty. And one of them is still involved, very active with the Memorial Fund, and we're pushing 17 years now. But the other two stuck out for 10 and 15 years collectively. And then we've got new police officers on board, right? So it's pretty extraordinary. Those police officers stepped up to the plate and agreed with me that said, there is something we can do here. That was an easily preventable death. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. And my final message, because time's up, is it's not what happens to us, right, that matters nearly as much as how we choose to respond. Because in any given moment, we have our choice, and that's why what's important now is so important, because we can really take each step forward. But my final point is this. When we say what's important now, obviously we're asking ourselves this question, correct? So one of the problems that I have found is you've got your monkey mind, your conscious mind going, blah, 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 go for the fourth, fifth, sixth beer, pay attention to the phone instead of your kid playing, all that other stuff, right? What's important now, often the loud voices in the room. What I challenge you today is what's important now, perhaps sometimes it's the quiet guy in the room, the introspective, you can call it the soul, your intuition, your higher self, your gut, your conscience, doesn't matter what it is, but sometimes the voice that isn't quite so loud, sometimes those are the ones, that's the answer you need to hear. And I think that, myself included, listening to that is what will get us where we need to go. One simple, but not easy step at a time. Thank you very much.